home of the Italian Grand Prix and the final European round, round 15 of the 16 race championship, and today may see possibly the new champion crowned. Keke Rosberg currently leading the championship, but all the excitement with this huge Italian crowd here centering around the man on pole position, because the crowd have come as always at Monza to see Ferrari, and at the bottom of your picture now is the man who's caused all the excitement on the front row of the grid, just coming into the picture now, Mario Andretti, because the American ex-world champion has come into the Ferrari team for this race. Remember, he was born in Italy, and he has put the Ferrari on pole position. There's Alain Prost, who is the man most likely to challenge Rosberg. A good performance by Prost today and a bad performance by Rosberg could put this man right back into the running for the World Championship. Andretti, the pole position man. We haven't seen him in Formula One racing, apart from one abortive run at Long Beach, at all this year. That's Riccardo Patrese in one of the two Brabhams. They're both going to make a pit stop for fuel again, we hear. Patrese on the second row of the grid. Arnoux in the other Renault back on row 3 with his teammate Prost. René Arnoux, who will be driving for Ferrari next year. There over Keke Rosberg, the fastest non-turbo. You see the championship points. Rosberg the leader. Pironi, of course, can't improve his score. And the starting grid with Andretti's Ferrari and Piquet's Brabham on the front. Then Ferrari and Brabham for Tombe and Patrese. Then we get the two Renaults, and it's the Saudia Williams of Keke Rosberg on row 4 with Bruno Giacomelli's Alfa. Off on the warm-up lap, and we look down from the top of the mighty concrete grandstand here, and you see the shape of the circuit with the 3 chicanes which have been introduced to slow down the enormously high speeds of what is still a very high-speed circuit. 145 mile an hour plus qualifying speeds in practice here yesterday, and this is the first chicane, the Variante Goodyear, which has been put in the long start-finish straight. The cars go away from here up to the Curva Grande, but you see how tight that chicane is. And now we're looking at the third chicane with Bruno Giacomelli going out of the third chicane. This is the long final straight, the Retifilo Centro, all the way down to the Curvetta Sud, the Curva Parabolica, and back towards the start-finish again. It's that final corner, that final long right-hander, where we've seen so many exciting finishes to Italian Grand Prix, and there the Tifosi, the fans without whom no Monza Grand Prix would be the same, on the front row. The Brabham on the left, the Ferrari, the pole position Ferrari on the right, Brabham and Ferrari behind them, then the two Renaults, then it's the green and white Saudia Williams of Keke Rosberg and Bruno Giacomelli alongside him. The field now moving forward towards their starting positions. It was here 4 years ago that we had such a grave starting accident, but now the new starting procedures should avoid all that sort of problem. There's going to be a red light, then a green, and all eyes on those lights. Andretti's Ferrari on pole, the Brabham of Piquet behind, then Tombe's Ferrari, then Patrese, the red light, there's the green, they're away, 26 cars storming away. A good start from Patrese. The two Renaults have nowhere to go, one's going one side, one's going the other. It's Prost on the grass there, but Piquet has the lead, Tombe is behind him, Arnoux has come through into third place, Andretti has fallen back down to fourth with Patrese behind him. The rest of the field storming through, very, very tight, bouncing wheels. It's so narrow, this first chicane, but already Nelson Piquet away, up through Curva Grande, on towards Lesmo, and it's Piquet, Tombe, and Arnoux, Brabham, Ferrari and Renault, the 3 turbo teams in the first 3. Then it's Patrese who's got past Andretti. Andretti is down to 5th now from pole position. A disastrous start for the American. And we've got Henton off, we've got Warwick off. Guerrero is involved also, I think. I think Derek Daly is involved. That's Derek Daly squeezing round the back, but that's Warwick there off. We're going to see it again. Henton backwards into Warwick. And Henton in the green Tyrrell is out. Warwick is out, skirt flying off the left-hand side of the new Tolman. That's such bad luck. This was the first run for the Tolman and the first run for Tyrrell with their new denim sponsorship and their new colours of green. But at the front of the field, Tombay has gone in front. Tombay is in front, and that's lots of excitement. The crowd are going wild. Tombay's Ferrari leads. René Arnoux is in second place, and Piquet mysteriously has lost that lead. It's Ferrari and Renault side by side as they come to finish the first lap, and Arnoux it is. Arnoux noses in front. Renault and Ferrari flash across the start-finish line to start lap 2. Tombay is fighting back as they come up to the chicane. René Arnoux the leader. Patrick Tombay in second place, and Piquet has fallen back to third. He's fallen back further and further. Piquet in the middle of that group. Nelson Piquet is definitely in trouble, and it's Riccardo Patrese in the second Brabham who's taken over the third place. But René Arnoux fighting away in front. Tombay fighting back because he had that lead so briefly. We saw the Italian crowd burst into an eruption of applause at Curva Grande. But now it's René Arnoux in front. It's Patrick Tombay in second place. It's now Riccardo Patrese in third place. So still the 3 turbo teams represented in the first 3, but the order has shuffled as we see René Arnoux pulling away, and Tombay now under threat from Patrese. Arnoux pulls away, and Tombay is challenging Patrese as they come down into the Variante Ascari. Patrese has to drop back behind Tombay, so Turbo Renault leads, Turbo Ferrari second. You see at the back, that's Derek Daly in the pits after that accident on the first lap, which we believe involved Guerrero's Enzyme and Derek Daly, and of course, as you saw, Brian Henton's Tyrrell and Derek Warwick's Tolman, both of which are out. And look at this lead that Arnoux is pulling out. As Arnoux completes 2 laps, we've got a new second man because Patrese has stormed past, out of the slipstream, storming past Patrick Tombay. A groan now from the grandstands here below me because the Italian car has dropped to third place through the chicane. Arnoux, Patrese in second place now, Tombay in third place, and way behind Tombay in the second group we've got in fourth place now Mario Andretti, and Nelson Piquet is falling back, and Prost is down in the traffic somewhere after a very poor start. So the 3 turbos in the lead. It's Renault for Arnoux leading. It's Brabham for Patrese in second place. It's Ferrari for Tombay in third place. And Arnoux pulling out this lead now, but Patrese is not letting him get any further away, certainly, as they go through the back section of the circuit, down towards the Curva del Seraglio and on towards the Variante Ascari, under the bridge, down to the third chicane behind the pit section, and Patrese closing on René Arnoux. Arnoux the leader, and we wonder how this is going to affect the championship, because at the moment Prost is well down, Rosberg is well down, and Teo Fabi pulls off. That's Teo Fabi in the Tolman, that's the older Tolman. So a tragic race for Tolman because their new car pushed out by an accident in the very opening lap. And now the older car driven by Teo Fabi is out. But now, as we come up to complete 3 laps, they're on lap 4, and Tombay is dropping back in third place. The Ferraris haven't got the speed. They were so quick in practice, but now in race trim, the battle is between Renault and Brabham, and Patrese is closing on René Arnoux for the lead. There goes Tombay in third place, carrying, of course, Gilles Villeneuve's old number 27. Over the messages on the road that have been written right on the track by the Ferrari fans go the leaders. Arnoux bouncing over the bumps, Patrese staying in the slipstream. Gilles forever, says the writing on the road there, but it's Ferrari falling back, and it's a Renault-Brabham battle. Now remember that Riccardo Patrese is on half-full tanks. We had this confirmed by Herbie Blash of the Brabham team just before the race began. The Brabhams are intending to stop. So Arnoux, the leader, has a lot of threat from Patrese, but he knows that Patrese is on half-full fuel tanks. He's going to have to stop at mid-distance, and that must make Arnoux feel pretty good. But he still wants to hold on to the lead of this race, and Arnoux must be delighted that he is showing the Renault team, whom he's leaving to go to Ferrari next year, that he is dominating the Italian Grand Prix. And Alain Prost, we don't know what his problem is, but Prost is well down the field, although he is now starting to fight up. This is now the completion of lap 4, the start of lap 5, and Patrese is still there, not quite enough, quite close enough to challenge, but look how he's going to close up under braking for the chicane. Arnoux into the chicane, Patrese into the chicane, very, very close. Almost snapping at the Renault's gearbox goes Brabham number 2 of Riccardo Patrese, the Monte Carlo rally winner, the man who was well in the lead in the Austrian Grand Prix before his engine seized after his pit stop and sent him bouncing off the track. And Arnoux under real pressure now. 0.8 seconds was the official timing when they crossed the start-finish line at the end of the previous lap, but it's a lot less than that now. Patrese looking for a spot, looking for a gap, looking for a mistake by Arnoux. And Arnoux unable to relax for a second. And you see how the two of them have pulled away from Patrick Tambay. Patrick Tambay still in third place, but Tambay out of their mirrors completely, and under the bridge they go, and Patrese having a look, Patrese coming up on the inside, but he can't quite do it under braking there. That is for the Curva della Vaglione. There is Patrick Tambay, and then empty road behind Tambay as we see the battle going on, and that's Prost coming through. Alain Prost right up now to Andretti. It's De Cesaris next up behind Prost, but Andretti in fourth place has Alain Prost snapping at his heels, and that means that Prost, whatever the problem was he had in the opening lap, has recovered from it and is storming through the field and is up with the Ferraris. René Arnoux the leader, Riccardo Patrese in second place, Patrick Tambay third, you see him in the background of the picture now, fourth just Mario Andretti, but Alain Prost is less than half a second behind him. De Cesaris, the first non-turbocharged car, and Prost is coming through. Surely they're side by side as they come up to the chicane. Prost is on the inside, Prost goes through. Alain Prost demotes the Ferrari of Mario Andretti to fifth place, but then Prost has done it wrong, because that effort sent him wide. He just kept off the curbs, which would have damaged his skirts, and Andretti is passed again, and De Cesaris very nearly went past. It's De Cesaris and Giacomelli in the Alphas right behind. Then it's Keke Rosberg, who is the third non-turbocharged car. The two Alfa Romeos, the V12 Alphas, going very well indeed. Andretti at the front of the picture now. Prost trying to recover from that mistake. De Cesaris, Giacomelli. That is Keke Rosberg, the championship leader, and he has got John Watson next up. So John Watson going very strongly, the second Cosworth car in the race, the fourth non-turbocharged car in the race. Mario Andretti leading a magnificent battle, which has a Renault, two Alphas, a Williams and a McLaren lining up behind in his mirrors. The rest of the field going down, but that is Patrese, and Patrese has slipped down the field now. Tambay it is who's moving up. You see the flags waving in the background. That's because Patrese has lost a place. A Ferrari has gained a place. We've now got René Arnoux comfortably on his own in front. Tambay is second, and now Prost has another go. And this time he makes his dive earlier. He's alongside, and you can't see it, but I can. He is going through. So there is the leader, René Arnoux, the leader in the Renault, but Alain Prost it is who's come through into third place. So now, leader, the Renault with the blue flash on the nose, which is René Arnoux. In second place now, Patrick Tambay in the Ferrari. Now into third place goes Alain Prost, the Renault with the red flash on the nose. And Mario Andretti is now back into fourth place with the two Alphas behind him of Giacomelli, of De Cesaris first, then Giacomelli. Then we've got Keke Rosberg and John Watson. But René Arnoux looking very much more comfortable now. We don't know what the trouble is with Patrese, but he's, just as his teammate did, he is slipping down and down and down. And there you see he's now down to 6th place, 18 seconds behind the leader when he was dogging the leader just a couple of laps ago. A serious problem for both the Brabhams, because Piquet is even further down the field and I think bound to stop any minute. So as the leader goes through now to complete 7 laps, this is the start of the 8th, although you're seeing on the caption the order at the end of 6 laps, and René Arnoux now absolutely on his own. A wonderful run at the front of the field. He's been fortunate, no doubt, in that both the Brabhams, which looked as though they were going to give him such a hard time, have hit trouble. There is our second man, Patrick Tambay, the Frenchman who joined the Ferrari team following the death of Gilles Villeneuve, and the next car up is now going to be it's going to be Prost ahead of Mario Andretti. So we have Renault Ferrari. This is Tambay. A great responsibility driving a Ferrari in front of the fiercely partisan Italian crowd. They've come here. There is Patrese in the pits, as we thought, and we hear that the trouble with Piquet's car was clutch, and Patrese disconsolately slapping the sides of his car. Off come the gloves. He's very disappointed, and that could well be the same sort of problem. Prost, Andretti, De Cesaris, Giacomelli, Rosberg, and Watson is next up behind Rosberg. There he is as they go through the Curva Parabolica. Both the Brabhams out, and we are told it was clutch trouble for Patrese as well. So both the Brabhams out, and still the order. Arnoux Renault first, Tambay Ferrari second, and there the midfield battle, Giacomelli being chased by Rosberg and John Watson. The red and white colours of the McLaren at the tail of that little queue, but still the order. Renault Arnoux leading, Ferrari Tambay second, Renault Prost third, Ferrari Andretti, that car there, number 28, in 4th place. Mario Andretti, and there is Piquet in the pits now. Flames from the exhaust pipe, and they're talking to him, and no doubt that is going to be the end of Piquet's race, as we see Andretti go on his way in 4th place. So it's a very hot day here, and we wonder whether the turbos, notoriously unreliable, particularly the Renaults, are they going to last in the heat? And the order at the end of 8 laps there, you see 7.5 seconds is the lead that René Arnoux has got. Giacomelli still fighting off the attentions of Keke Rosberg and John Watson, and closing up in the slipstream, and Rosberg's having a little look at one side. Rosberg takes a wide line there, looking for a way past the Alfa. It's not going to do him any good. Giacomelli in the Alfa, Rosberg and Watson in their 2 Cosworth-powered cars, and they just don't quite seem to have enough power to get past the V12 Alfa on the straight. This is Alain Prost. You can see the red flash on the front, which identifies car number 15. The blue flash on number 16 is the leader, René Arnoux, but this is Alain Prost. In 3rd place, the man who's staying with Renault next year, and that's the leader with the blue nose. That is René Arnoux, and a very comfortable lead now. It was 7.5 seconds last time we looked, but I think it's more than that even now. And Patrick Tambay apparently unable to do anything about the flying René Arnoux. There is Tambay at the back of the picture, coming down the long straight into the Curvetta and Curva Parabolica, bouncing over the bumps. Tambay moves across the road to take the perfect line through what is now a very fast corner, a tight entry, which is the Curvetta part, a much shallower exit there on the Parabolica. See the flags wave as they do every time a Ferrari comes into sight. Patrick Tambay in 2nd place, apparently content now to stay in that 2nd place, or in any case unable to do anything about the leader, René Arnoux. But what is he going to do about the progress of Alain Prost? Because I think Alain Prost in 3rd place is closing on Ferrari number 27, and indeed leaving behind the second Ferrari, that of Mario Andretti, who, let's remember, started from pole position after a wonderful lap in practice, but lacks experience of this turbo Ferrari. Only one Formula One race so far this year for Andretti, and that looked like Jarier going off. I think that must have been Jarier, and he's gone straight over the chicanes, and he's going to park. So there the order at the end of 10 laps. We're now on lap 12, and 8.5 seconds was the gap from Tombe up to Arnoux. Prost, though, 8 seconds behind Tombe, but he is closing. Leader Arnoux down into the Variante Goodyear, the first chicane. We wait to see the second man, Tombe. There he is. Patrick Tombe neatly into the chicane, clipped the first apex, clipped the second, and clipped the third and the fourth. A very tidy line through that 4-part chicane. And here the midfield battle, and John Watson's making a challenge as De Cesaris is in the pits. Don't change my tyres, I want to do something else, he's saying. In fact, they are changing the tyres automatically on De Cesaris's car. And that's a shame for the Italians, because De Cesaris was going extremely well, and he was indeed the leading non-turbo car. So De Cesaris dropping out has promoted the Bruno Giacomelli battle up one. That means that is now the battle for 5th place. And John Watson was having a big go there, as we saw them briefly. The gap between the leaders still 8.5 seconds. But John Watson now challenging Keke Rosberg and wanting to get up onto terms with Bruno Giacomelli. That's the battle for 5th place, but there you see Tombe 8.5 seconds behind. That was Andretti there. This is Mario Andretti, number 28, the silver and red helmet of the American, and here comes the battle into sight. And it's Giacomelli, and it is John Watson who's gone past Keke Rosberg. Giacomelli in the Alfa, John Watson in the McLaren, Keke Rosberg, the championship leader, who so needs points today, back now in 7th place. Andretti is 4th, Bruno Giacomelli is 5th, John Watson is now 6th and challenging Giacomelli. Giacomelli moves across to keep the door shut as they come down the long straight. Rosberg follows in their wheel tracks. Giacomelli, the orange helmet in the red and white Alfa, pursued by the red and white McLaren, both cars sponsored by Marlboro, but both very different. A V12 engine in the Alfa, the Cosworth V8 in the McLaren, and Watson is close, tucked into the slipstream, and Rosberg is being dropped. Watson makes his effort, coming up on the inside into the chicane. And a beautiful overtaking manoeuvre by Watson. Can he keep it there? He does. A perfectly executed manoeuvre by John Watson, and we are seeing John Watson drive the sort of drive we've seen so many times this year, where he starts well down on the grid. This time he started on the 6th row of the grid, and he's come storming all the way through to lead the non-turbocharged cars. Giacomelli tucked in behind, Giacomelli looking as though he's going to fight back, but in fact Watson is clear, and Keke Rosberg now closing on Bruno Giacomelli. So the Alfa Challenge suddenly going a bit sour. We've had a pit stop, as you saw, for Andrea De Cesaris. They seem, from where I'm watching, to have changed the tyres but done very little else. And De Cesaris is back in the race, although he has lost some time. Watson then pulling away as they come down the back section and into the Variante Ascari. Keke Rosberg trying to follow Watson and close on Giacomelli, and Mario Andretti clear of that battle now, as we see the leader go through. He's just lapped a back marker, and this is now lap 14. There is Tombe, still in 2nd place. The V6 turbocharged Ferrari chasing the V6 turbocharged Renault, and that gap is still constant at 8.5 seconds. So Tombe is not letting Arnoux get any further ahead, but 8.5 seconds is a long way here. We're now watching Mario Andretti. Andretti in 4th place, behind Alain Prost in the 2nd of the Renaults. And the 2nd Ferrari on its own now, but John Watson, the new 5th man, now has the Cosworth in John Watson's McLaren, got enough power to get him up onto terms with the very, very powerful Ferrari of Mario Andretti. So, on lap 14, the leader now catching up with the back markers. Mauro Baldi in the orange arrows, another Italian driver, and the blue car ahead of Arnoux now is the Fittipaldi of Chico Serra. So, 8.7 seconds the gap. Tom Bay still holding it constant, and now it is that Arnoux has got to work his way through these back markers. He's closing on Chico Serra, the Brazilian, in the Fittipaldi now. And as we've often said before, it's always the hardest job for the leading man to come up and lap the back markers. They're not expecting him so closely. Once the leader has gone through, then they're prepared for his pursuers to come through. But Chico Serra holding up Arnoux just briefly, inadvertently, in the tight chicane. And now Arnoux looking for a way past as they go up to the Curva Grande, and round the outside of the Curva Grande, Arnoux squeezing past. That was a bit of a crowded moment there, but Arnoux is through. Chico Serra lets him through, as well he should, of course. And now Arnoux is closing on Mauro Baldi in the arrows, the new stubbier-nosed arrows. It looks for all the world like a Williams painted orange, a very similar design from the arrows team run by Jackie Oliver and Alan Rees. And Serra then is left behind as Arnoux closes on Mauro Baldi in the arrows number 30, and the blue flag's waving. That means there's a faster car behind you, keep out of the way, and Baldi keeps very neatly out of the way, and that time René Arnoux didn't seem to lose any time at all as they go out of the Ascari chicane and on down towards the Curvetta Sud and the Parabolica, with now Eliseo Salazar in the ATS number 10, the Chilean driver, next up. But we look again at the midfield battle. John Watson has pulled away from Bruno Giacomelli. There is Watson, there is Bruno Giacomelli, and Keke Rosberg is still stuck behind Bruno Giacomelli as Watson comes down into the Variante Ascari. Giacomelli and Rosberg snapping at his heels. This is the fastest part of the circuit now, this not very long but nevertheless very fast straight out of the fourth gear chicane into fifth gear now, up to about 190 miles an hour, before they dab the brakes, hook the car down into third. They frequently go from fifth gear straight into third without going through fourth, hard on the brakes, out, then accelerating back into fourth gear, out of the Curva Parabolica into fifth gear. Now Giacomelli, Keke Rosberg, and Rosberg can't be pleased to see John Watson in front of him, because of course Watson is one of his challengers in the World Championship. Rosberg, remember, with 42 points, Prost with 31, Watson with 30, and Rosberg can't be happy to know that Prost is in front of him and John Watson is in front of him, and it was today that he was hoping for a good finish which might clinch the championship title. It certainly doesn't look that way at the moment. Watson number 7, Giacomelli number 23, Rosberg number 6, the dramatic winner of the Swiss Grand Prix at Dijon, but not looking so competitive here today, striving to get onto terms with Bruno Giacomelli. There's Giacomelli, there is Rosberg. Meanwhile, behind Rosberg, we have another Italian, Michele Alboreto, is next up in the Tyrrell. There you see a brief flash of the dark green Tyrrell, and behind Alboreto is Niki Lauda, John Watson's teammate, in the other McLaren number 8. So Watson down the straight, Giacomelli behind him, then Rosberg, and in the murk, in the background, in the shimmering heat, car number 3, the dark blue car, is Alboreto with Niki Lauda tucked in behind him. The dark blue, I'd say, but in fact, of course, today the Tyrrells are green. They've been blue for so long, but now the Tyrrells are green, carrying their new sponsorship from the denim perfume people. And how nice to see a British car in what we all used to call British racing green. Giacomelli away from Rosberg a little bit now. Rosberg not so close. And indeed, I think Alboreto is closing on Rosberg now. Always the battle for championship points. Giacomelli, Rosberg. And Watson clear comfortably of Giacomelli now in 5th place. And 5th place, of course, is going to mean 2 points Rosberg still in 7th place, and that means no points at all. There is Alboreto, with Niki Lauda now challenging Alboreto in the Tyrrell. Alboreto's teammate Brian Henton, you'll remember, went out on that multiple accident on the first lap, which took out Derek Daly eventually because his car was damaged in the accident. It also took out Derek Warwick, and it damaged the car of Roberto Guerrero, who's had a very, very long pit stop. Guerrero, who seemed to be involved right from the start of that accident, has now rejoined the race, although he's lost an awful lot of laps. John Watson leading the battle for 5th place from Giacomelli, who is 6th, Rosberg, who is 7th, 0.9 of a second. The gap between the car you see now and the one in front of him. There's Watson, there's Giacomelli, there is Rosberg, and just behind, just out of the picture now, Michele Alboreto in the Tyrrell and Niki Lauda. And using every inch of the road, there goes Rosberg as he tries to strive ever closer to the Alfa Romeo. Little twitch from Rosberg, then over the curb. Rosberg getting untidy now. And obviously the Williams is not handling today as well as it should. As we look now at Tombay, and look how close the Renault with the red nose is getting to the all-red Ferrari. Alain Prost in 3rd place is closing. This is lap 21, and we have got a very, very determined Alain Prost in 3rd place. Remember, he is currently on 31 points in the World Championship, 11 behind Rosberg, and a good finish today could put him very much closer. Now, John Watson having to work through the back markers, and in front of him, car number 14, that's Roberto Guerrero, who, to my view anyway, initiated that accident at the very start. Guerrero lost 11 laps in the pits having his car mended, and he's now coming storming through. Baldi and Guerrero nearly touching there, and John Watson wisely waits behind. Roberto Guerrero forces his way past Mauro Baldi and the Arrows. Although Guerrero is 11 laps behind the leaders, he's driving hard, and Ensign number 14, Arrows number 30, both of them in front of John Watson, and John Watson, like the canny hand he is, waited for them to sort out that little bit of drama. Now Watson goes past Mauro Baldi and sets off after Roberto Guerrero. Guerrero in front of Watson in car number 14. Guerrero, who's a Colombian, and it's 3.3 seconds the gap back to Giacomelli. But of course Watson having to slow then has actually brought Giacomelli closer to him. Watson having to wait for Guerrero to have his own little battle with Mauro Baldi, but Watson now past Baldi and closing on Guerrero, and always lapping these back markers is a problem. If you were watching the German Grand Prix, you'll remember the drama there where the leader Nelson Piquet tangled with Eliseo Salazar and went out of the race as a result, and was very much less than pleased. That is Salazar number 10, and he's got Mario Andretti about to lap him. So Eliseo Salazar in the German ATS with Mario Andretti on his tail. Mario Andretti is still in 4th place in the Ferrari, and Alain Prost is still 3rd, but closing on Patrick Tambay in Ferrari number 27, who is 2nd. Salazar's car bouncing over the bumps on its harsh suspension. Andretti is through into the chicane. Andretti is neatly through, and Salazar keeping well out of the way. His German Grand Prix lesson no doubt learned. As Andretti goes on his way, and Arnoux still the leader. Patrick Tambay still 2nd, but before very long I think we're going to have a battle for 2nd place, and there you saw it. That is Niki Lauda in the pits. Lauda is in the pits for a tyre change. I think it's having a slightly leisurely look about it, though, this pit stop. Niki Lauda in the McLaren, who was running behind Alboreto, but there is the battle that we just mentioned. Ferrari number 27 and Renault number 15, Patrick Tambay holding off Alain Prost, and he set the fastest lap of the day so far, an average speed of 138 miles an hour, coming back up the field after a disastrous start which saw him right down in 7th place in the early laps, and he's come storming back, and he's up with Patrick Tambay. This is the battle for second place. Prost's teammate, René Arnoux, out in the lead. But Alain Prost in third place with the scent of second place and indeed the scent of 6 championship points at least, spurring him on. Gilles forever, that's the sign on the road once again as they go through that chicane and away, and Tombe pulling away just a little bit. So although Prost has come storming up to Tombe now responding to the pressure and pulling out just a little bit. 2 very fast turbocharged cars, both of them with perhaps 700 horsepower on this very hot day here at Monza, both giving absolutely every horse they've got through the left-hander, the Curva de Vaglione, the Variante Ascari, which is the chicane built into the Vaglione corner, now with Nigel Mansell in front of them due to be lapped. Nigel Mansell in the Lotus, comes Mario and comes Patrick Tombe, and Prost on his tail all the time through the Parabolica. Mansell goes out of the picture and Prost is closer now. Prost is in the slipstream. Can he tow himself closer, or can the Ferrari shake him off as they go down to the chicane? And Prost is very, very close indeed. Prost makes a dive up the inside for second place, but Tombe keeps the door shut. Prost decides to wait this time, but Tombe now knows that the slightest mistake, the slightest late braking, the slightest little twitch that's going to lose him time, and that is all that Prost needs. Prost now biding his time. Mansell in front of them, down to the Della Roggia chicane, and Mansell is out in front. I don't think that lapping him is going to give them a problem at the moment. They're through that chicane. They're down now towards the double Lesmo curve. That's the first apex of Lesmo, the long double right-hander. Here is the second apex of Lesmo, and now there's the straight down towards the left-hander at Vialone and the next chicane. And we've got problems for Rosberg, because Rosberg's rear wing, there he is, his rear wing has come off. He's just past Bruno Giacomelli, but the rear wing has come off Rosberg's Williams, and that is going to do him no favours at all. The car should be almost undrivable in that state. That's Watson ahead of them, but Rosberg has finally passed Giacomelli. Giacomelli waving, he almost got hit by the wing as it came off. Giacomelli is alongside and he's waving at Rosberg. Rosberg waves back. Clearly Rosberg knows that something is wrong. He'll be able to feel it the way the car is handling. But Keke Rosberg, the championship leader who so wanted a good performance here, having finally fought his way past Bruno Giacomelli, the rear wing has flown off. It's broken off at its stem, off the back of the Williams, and Rosberg slows, and clearly he's going to have to come into the pits. Alboreto goes past him as well in the Tyrrell, and Rosberg now well out of the points and going more slowly back towards the pits. So very, very bad luck for the Finn, the man who won at Dijon, the man who so nearly won in Austria, the man who is the current World Championship leader. But Bruno Giacomelli passed him now and back into 5th place, and Rosberg slows. In fact, he's clearly nursing it back to the pits. Chico Serra has just gone past him in the Fittipaldi. There you see the back of the car with the big horizontal wing above the gearbox, nowhere to be seen. And Rosberg steers now down into the pit lane. Rosberg coming into the Williams pits, which are right the far end of the pits, up near our commentary position. And we can look down and see as the Williams mechanics are there waiting for him, and they rush over the car. There's a wing already ready to go on, one of the mechanics holding it, and they're going to take off the old wing bracket. The wing is mounted on the gearbox. They're changing the front tyres as well by the look of things, but nevertheless that's going to do Rosberg a lot of problem. And here's the battle for second place now. Tombe still ahead of the Renault, but once again Prost comes up the inside as they come into the chicane. Tombe leaves his braking late, but the very, very steady Ferrari going round almost as if on rails, and Alain Prost could do nothing then. Patrick Tombe in second place. René Arnoux, you'll remember, is comfortably out in front. And every time Alain Prost makes that dive up to the first chicane after the start-finish line, Tombe is able to outdrive him into the chicane, and that then slows Prost, and he loses contact, and he then has to do the job all over again. Tombe driving very, very coolly, very smoothly, and not allowing, so far anyway, the attentions of Alain Prost to ruffle him at all. And a raised arm from Prost. Prost is in trouble. Alain Prost is in trouble once again, just as he was challenging Patrick Tambay. And you can hear the cheers of the pro-Ferrari crowd, because any bad news for Renault is good news for Ferrari. It's good news for the Monza crowd. And poor Alain Prost drives slowly now, surely back towards the pits. The car is spluttering. It's obviously some sort of fuel problem or mechanical problem once again. And as so often, the Renault has gone very, very quickly. That's Rosberg coming out of the pits. Rosberg is back in the race with his new wing, but he's lost 2 laps. It took the Williams mechanics 2 laps, and he's come out right in front of one of the Ferraris. He's come out, in fact, in front of Tambay, and Tambay is delayed briefly in the chicane by Rosberg, who's still warming up as he comes out of the pits. Rosberg now tucks in behind Tambay, but Rosberg 2 whole laps plus a bit behind the leaders, and there is Prost in the pits. And cheers and whistles and catcalls from the pro-Ferrari crowd. But what very bad luck yet again for Alain Prost and Renault. Remember, he was comfortably in the lead of the Austrian Grand Prix before the fuel injection played up and his car came to a halt. And Tambay will now know, at least from the empty mirrors on his Ferrari, and they've been full of Renault for so many laps, Tambay will know, even before his pit signals tell him, that he has a nice big cushion back to the 3rd place man. But Prost is out of the pits again. He didn't spend very long there. Whatever the problem was, the Renault mechanics have worked on the car, and perhaps they've managed to fix it. Prost back in the race again, but it's now Ferrari's 2nd and 3rd. There is the 2nd place man, Patrick Tambay, and there is Alain Prost. He's stopped already, and this time he's out of the car. The car has ground to a halt. And again, cheers and boos and whistles from the Italian crowd, ever ready to be impolite to any driver who isn't driving a Ferrari. And there you see the order, with Andretti 49 seconds behind the leader, so 35 seconds down on his teammate Patrick Tambay. John Watson now promoted to 4th place, Giacomelli promoted to 5th, and that's going to do John Watson's championship hopes some good, because Keke Rosberg, remember, has had that long pit stop. We're now on lap 32, and Tambay is 2nd for Ferrari. Mario Andretti is 3rd for Ferrari. John Watson is now 4th for McLaren, and way, way out in front, still René Arnoux in the sole remaining Renault. Now, is whatever Prost's problem was, is that problem likely to afflict the leader René Arnoux? Very hot day here, the sort of weather that the turbos are meant not to like. But still, turbos 1st, 2nd and 3rd, Renault, Ferrari and Ferrari. John Watson is 4th, Bruno Giacomelli is 5th, and Michele Alboreto is 6th in the Tyrrell. Tambay, the bright blue helmet of the Frenchman, who won at Hockenheim, the German Grand Prix, who stepped into the Ferrari team to replace the late Gilles Villeneuve in mid-season, and who is already in 9th place in the World Championship, having scored in 4 races. That's Guerrero's Ensign, still going strongly, although well done. That's Bruno Giacomelli, now in 5th place. Bruno Giacomelli has Roberto Guerrero ahead of him to pass as they go down into the first chicane. Guerrero 11 laps down, Bruno Giacomelli holding 5th place. And there you see the Renault in the ditch, which is where the crane has lifted it so that it's well clear. Obviously the problem completely immobilised the car. Guerrero and Giacomelli. Giacomelli looking in his mirrors there, looking for the next car, and the next car is there. That is the Tyrrell of Alboreto, and Alboreto once again going well. A driver in whom Ken Tyrrell has a lot of hope for the future, Michele Alboreto, the young Italian who's driven so strongly for Tyrrell on so many occasions this year. So an Italian car is second, an Italian car is third, an Italian driver is fifth, and an Italian driver is sixth, and there is Alboreto going into fifth place ahead of Giacomelli. So Alboreto forcing past Bruno Giacomelli into fifth place. That's Salazar, who of course is a couple of laps down in the ATS. But Alboreto in number 3, and Giacomelli is clearly in trouble because the Lotus of Elio De Angelis is also going by, and Giacomelli, looking once more in his mirrors, clearly in problems, and I would guess he must be bound for the pits. He is indeed, keeping over to the right of the road. Bruno Giacomelli. More bad luck for the Italian, the all-Italian Alfa Romeo team, because Andrea De Cesaris, who was so well placed early on, had a pit stop for fresh tyres. He is still going, but he's well down the field. And it's going to be tyres for Giacomelli as well, I think. Tyres are changed on the Alfa. The mechanics working very quickly. So often they practice these tyre changes. Off the jacks comes the Alfa Romeo, and Giacomelli ready to rejoin the race. That's Mark Sura in one of the Arrows, and that's De Cesaris, you saw, who's well down the field after his pit stop, and this is Mario Andretti in third place. Mario Andretti, of course, was driving himself for Alfa Romeo last year. That was his last full season in Formula One, and he then abandoned Formula One to concentrate on American races. One of the reasons, he said. That's Mark Sura in the pits in the Arrows. Sura bringing the Arrows into the pits, the Swiss driver, and that's Giacomelli once more. Giacomelli is out of the pits on his fresh tyres, but goodness me, he doesn't seem to be going very quickly. But one man who's going very quickly is Keke Rosberg. Rosberg just flashing past Giacomelli there. Rosberg 2 laps behind, but the Finn never ever says done. And as long as there's a race going on, Keke Rosberg will be driving hard. Rosberg, number 6. And Giacomelli, number 23, after his pit stop. Both of those men having made pit stops, having been in the running for championship points earlier on. And Giacomelli not apparently very happy after that stop, because he doesn't seem to have rejoined the race at any great pace. Into the Parabolica, hanging the taillight, goes Keke Rosberg, and there you see Eddie Cheever now promoted into 6th place in the Ligier. That's following Giacomelli's stop. Watson still 4th, Alboreto still 5th, and 18.5 seconds is the lead that René Arnoux now has over Patrick Tambay in 2nd place. Rosberg in the chicane with his brand new wing, and Giacomelli, as we thought, not at all happy with the handling of the Alfa Romeo, and back in the pits again. Elio De Angelis being lapped now by the leader, René Arnoux. The sole surviving Renault, Alain Prost out of the race, and we're already doing calculations here to work out what this race result is going to mean in the World Championship, and John Watson in 4th place. If Rosberg doesn't get back up into the points, and with a 2-lap deficit it seems very unlikely that he will, as we watch Arnoux the leader through the chicane, this could well keep John Watson's championship points close enough to Keke Rosberg to keep the championship battle alive all the way to Las Vegas. We're now on lap 35. 17 laps to go. And Arnoux comfortably on his way. And now Arnoux, knowing no doubt from pit signals that, or in fact he will indeed have seen his teammate Alain Prost parked by the side of the road before the crane was able to swing him out of the way. Arnoux now must be scanning the gauges. He's got a huge lead, everything's going right for him, but René Arnoux has so often in the past known disappointment. a magnificent win for him in the French Grand Prix this year, and it was that win which brought problems between Arnoux and his teammate Alain Prost, because the team orders were that Prost, who was in front of Arnoux in the World Championship at the time, Prost should be allowed to win if the Renaults were lying first and second. And Arnoux, in his home French Grand Prix, decided otherwise. He put the Renault in the lead, he stayed there, and the deterioration of relations between Prost and Arnoux led Prost to say publicly, there isn't room for both of us in this team. At the end of the year, one of us has got to go. Well, it's this man who's going, and the team he's going to, Ferrari. Ferrari, whose turbocharged cars have most of this year been more reliable than the Renaults, and indeed on occasions have been faster. Renault, who've done so much development work on the turbo, Renault, who came into Formula One racing with a turbocharged car when everybody else was using normally aspirated 3 litres. They were uncompetitive for so long, but they worked and worked, they invested a lot of money, and Renault now reaping some sort of reward anyway after an unreliable and unfortunate season, but they've been going quickly when they've been going. This is Keke Rosberg now up to Eliseo Salazar at the Parabolica. Rosberg tucked in behind Salazar. And indeed, this is a battle for a place, because Rosberg is now behind Salazar. He's now in front of Salazar, and that on my lap chart has promoted Rosberg to 8th place. So despite that long pit stop, Keke Rosberg is now in 8th place. So a couple of retirements in front of him, and that could clinch the World Championship for Rosberg. And that's again an indication of the never say die spirit of this Finnish driver, who has come from behind in so many races this year, and who won that wonderful victory over Renault in the Swiss Grand Prix at Dijon just a couple of weeks ago. Arnoux then, with 3 laps to go, Arnoux in the chicane, and away on his way up to the Variante della Roggia, out of the Curva Grande. You see how these modern Formula One cars bounce on the bumps with their very, very harsh suspension. There is our second man, Patrick Tambay, all on his own. And behind him, having just been lapped, the man who's in 5th place, and that is, of course, Michele Alboreto. 14 seconds now, the gap between Arnoux and Tambay. That's much too big a gap for Tambay to do anything about, and it shows that Arnoux is stroking it to the finish. The gap has come down to 14 seconds, and René Arnoux cruising home to finish and hoping that there will be no bad luck, no mechanical failure for Renault number 16, even though Renault number 15 is sitting ignominiously in the ditch beside the Variante Goodyear, after, we're told, fuel injection trouble once again for the Renault engine. That's Roberto Guerrero still going after that very long pit stop caused by the accident at the beginning, and there is second man Patrick Tambay. That's what 14 seconds looks like. It's the length of the Rettifilio Centro and the half at least of the Parabolica. Round the Parabolica and onto the start-finish straight goes the Ferrari, number 27 of Patrick Tambay in 2nd place. This is now lap 51 of the 52. 2 laps left in front of Patrick Tambay. Tambay down to the chicane where he was fighting off the attentions not many laps ago of Alain Prost, and there we see Prost's car in the ditch with a white overalled Marshall standing by it. And there, the leading Renault of René Arnoux, 14.4 seconds, the gap still constant on this penultimate lap of the Italian Grand Prix, the penultimate round of the 1982 World Championship. And John Watson is still there in 4th place, and that's going to earn him 3 points if he can stay there, and that's going to keep the World Championship wide open. Arnoux onto the Rettifilio Centro for the last but one time in this 52-lap race. The ubiquitous Mr. Guerrero behind them. down into the curvetta, onto the parabolica. Goes the Renault to start its final lap out of the parabolica and up to the start-finish line. Fifth gear here, 180 miles an hour past the pits, down towards the Variante Goodyear chicane for the final time. The Renault bouncing under braking into the chicane. The first two apexes, the third and the fourth, out of the double chicane and on to the Curva Grande. René Arnoux on the final lap, and this is going to be René Arnoux' fourth Grand Prix win and his second this year for the Renault team. The turbo engine sounding very crisp and very healthy. No problems surely now for René Arnoux in what will of course be his penultimate Grand Prix for the Renault team. He'll have Las Vegas for them in 2 weeks' time, and then it's on to Ferrari. Under the bridge, down towards the Curva del Velione. The Variante Ascari and the Rettifilo Centro, that last final straight down to the Curvetta. It's going to be René Arnoux' race, but the Ferrari flags behind are already getting ready to wave for the man who's going to be second, Patrick Tambay, and of course their beloved hero Mario Andretti, who's going to be third. The checkered flag is waiting. René Arnoux in the Renault. There is the checkered flag. And delight from the Renault pits. Cheers from the Italian crowd. A burst of applause, but now we wait for Patrick Tambay, who is going to finish second, 14 seconds behind in the Ferrari. Where is the Ferrari? There it is, and now the crowd erupts, and we wait for Mario Andretti, who is going to be third. John Watson is going to be fourth. Fifth will be Michele Alboreto, and sixth is going to be Eddie Cheever, as René Arnoux cruises round. The waves from the marshals and even some waves from some Ferrari flags, because a magnificent drive for René Arnoux, and it's taken him from start to finish in the lead. A brief burst from Nelson Piquet at the start, but a comfortable, virtually flag-to-flag victory for the little Frenchman. His crash helmet already off. The blessed cooling air of the slipstream after a long and hot race for René Arnoux. His fourth Grand Prix win, his second of the year for Renault. And waves there for Patrick Tambay, who's coming up. Number 27, Patrick Tambay, and the crowd already all over the bit of the road that says Gilles Forever. The crowd already all over the track in their excitement. And we've got the sort of scenes here below us that we can only ever have at Monza. The crowd completely out of control. That's Keke Rosberg, a disappointed Keke Rosberg, who is finishing out of the points. John Watson is fourth, as you see. Alboreto fifth, a lap behind. Cheever sixth, a lap behind. And this is going to keep John Watson's championship points open, because 33 points, 9 points behind Rosberg. If Watson can win in Las Vegas in 2 weeks' time and Rosberg doesn't score, they will tie, and that would mean Watson getting the World Championship title on the basis of most wins. Peroni is still in second place, although of course he won't drive again this season because of his injuries from the German Grand Prix accident. The crowd absolutely going berserk. Ferrari second, Ferrari third here at Monza. But a fine win for Renault and René Arnoux, a fine fourth place for John Watson, keeping the championship open to Las Vegas in Nevada, just 2 weeks away. And if this is how the Italian crowd behave when a Ferrari finishes second, goodness knows what they would have done if a Ferrari had won. But the man who's going to climb highest on that rostrum, there he goes, is René Arnoux of Renault, waving his hat to the crowd. Patrick Tambay gives him a hug as he goes past, and Mario Andretti on the right nearly losing his Goodyear hat. On goes the laurel wreath, and that's quite a big wreath for little René Arnoux to cope with. He's got laurel wreath in his hair. He's struggling with it, but on goes the wreath. Off comes Patrick Tambay's hat. Mario Andretti looking fairly impassive, but the crowd underneath delighted, the Ferrari flags waving. René Arnoux showing the strain of what's been a long and hot but beautifully controlled race for him. Tombe on the left gets his cup, Andretti has a quiet chat and looks quite nonchalant, and now we look ahead. Las Vegas will decide the world champion.